Hey, it's JC1424 once again with another album review. Today we're going to be talking about the new Red Sun Rising album, Thread. This was a follow-up to their debut album, Polyester Zeal, that came out in 2015. And if you want to check out a review of that album that I did just a while back to make some comparisons to this one, you can click the link in the top right corner of the video above, or you could, I guess, wait till the end of this review and click the link in the description because that'll be there as well. So right off the bat I can say that there are large differences between Polyester Zeal and Thread. One thing about Polyester Zeal that you can remember is that it was a fall album from October of 2015, which means it did have this feeling of the beginning of the end, and you can imagine leaves falling off of trees and the world starting to get into the cold again. But whenever you listen to this album, it was released in the spring, so it's kind of like things are starting to warm up again. You can see the flowers coming out of the ground, everything's starting to turn green. I'm pointing to the album cover that I put on the wall because I took that out of the CD case after I got it and practically memorized a lot of the lyrics rather easily. And another thing I should mention about that, throughout this album, the lyrical content is not as creative as it was with Polyester Zeal for the most part, but most of it goes into the overall sound of the music, which really does interpret the return to life with spring very well. Let's go ahead and get into the first track. Fascination was the first song on this album, and it was the second single to be released before the album itself. It came out about a month after the lead single, I think, and this one definitely grew on me rather quickly. I mean, once this one grew on me, I think the lead single was the one that I kind of grew off quite a bit, and I didn't like it as much as I did in the beginning. Whenever I first heard that song, it was rather just the concept that I love so much, but this one, it's just musically amazing. I love the hard-hitting guitar work that it has, and whenever it calms down, it's beautifully mysterious, and it's the first sound that you hear when you listen to this album, so it becomes rather iconic once you listen to it one or two times. So that the way that they play with the sound of the guitar whenever they start the song is just really cool. So it's a great intro. But this song symbolizes a sad addiction to just material treasure that someone might have, where they leave the ones that they love, or they just stop acknowledging them because they found something that probably isn't even real. And overall, this song is just some really artistic adrenaline. I gotta say, this is one of my favorite songs on the album already. Track 2 is Left for Dead, and it dwells about on the same meaning as the first song on this album, with an abandonment that happened to this first character, and the second character is so far away at this point that he can't get back, but yet somehow it's like they're both praying for each other, but the first character still knows that there's no reason for them to be even bothering at this point. I love the lively guitar that's in the background of the opening verses, and then whenever you get to the second set of verses, it has this angsty edge to it as it descends, and it's kind of a back and forth contradicting feeling, but it's still made out to be really pretty good. Same time, it's musically simplistic, it's not that amazing, and the lyrical content isn't that big a deal either. But whenever you get to the end of the song, it's got this outro with some screen vocals, and you can really jam out to it. So that's one thing that is really nice in this song, and it's quite memorable, but at the same time, it's not one of those big amazing songs on this album. The third song and the lead single to this album was Deathwish. Whenever this first came out, I think about halfway through January, I was actually hearing it for the first time while watching the music video, which made it a lot more thought-provoking because I could actually see what the lyrics were depicting. It asked this question of what you would do if you knew the world was going to be ending in just a few minutes or maybe a couple hours. You know you can't stop it, and there's no reason to go crying about it, so you just want to enjoy those final few seconds. And I had that concept on my mind and found it rather intriguing for like 2 weeks straight. So it took me a while to grow out of this song, but once Fascination came out, that grew on me, and this was just a thing of the past. Not really. It's still a pretty damn good song. It's actually the theme song for my current and final NASCAR Heat 2 Let's Play, if you haven't seen that intro yet. It's a good intro. But there's a lot to take away from this song, even though a lot of people have criticized it for what it's not. It's not some ridiculously hard-hitting rock track, or it's mainstream canvas that is used by almost every single fucking music artist in every single genre these days. And you could like any freaking band, and they use this mainstream canvas, so that's not something that I would take away from this. you think about Fascination and it didn't use that, and then you just take all the other music that they make for granted. But anyhow, like I said, there's a lot to take away from it with the memorable lyrical content. The guitar solo creates a lot of suspense. There's this Spanish upbeat section that I really like to it because it's got the I don't know what those are called because I'm a retard. But anyhow, it's just such a great song. And then you get to the outro and it's just got this melodic and sincere feeling to it that is just unforgettable. So I would never go criticizing a song that has so much put into it. My favorite song on this album by far, and my favorite song released yet in 2018, is track 4, Stealing Life. It has this very inspiring meaning behind it about convincing someone else that your life won't revolve around them any longer after they've left you, and that you can move on and you don't have to be depressed and you can just handle being on your own. You can be happy just like that. It has this instrumentation to it that is very uplifting as we reach some brilliant key changes, and then in between all these key changes is in the chorus and the really inspiring verses, obviously. We have this Beatles-like piano that starts out the song after some really cool acoustic guitar riff. Whenever you get to the end of the song, it kind of plays out with that Beatles-like piano. And if you actually watch a certain interview by Red Sun Rising, Mike actually tells us that he took some influence from the Beatles and he placed that into his music. And he did a really good job selecting that for this song in particular, because overall, I really do love the key that this song has. It really does pretty much set this album for what it is entirety. Like, if I had to take one song from this album and say that this album is like this one song in particular, it would be this one right here. Could you too far gone to waste away? The fifth song on this album was originally titled Tie Your Own Noose, but for obvious reasons the record label did not want them titling it that, so Red Sun Rising came up with the name El Lazo, which is Spanish for the loop. I guess you could probably put 2 and 2 together and find out where they came up with that name, but it does remind me a bit of Imitation from Polyester Zeal, which was the last song on that album. The song meaning is the only thing that's really similar here, but at the same time, that song can probably come off in the wrong way if you don't listen to it correctly or take the time to know what all the lyrics are and what they're trying to say. But with this song, it's rather instant. It has this positive atmosphere to it, and Mike is singing about how hard it is for someone to commit suicide whenever they're hesitating because of people that they love and not wanting to say goodbye to them. And that is something to be very thankful for, if you ask me, that there are people out there that keep you from committing suicide or having the desire to do something as stupid as that whenever you just don't want to say goodbye to them because you don't want to leave them and you don't want them to feel the pain of having lost you either. And that is a very important fact to get across, so it's rather heart-touching for me personally listening to this song. The instrumentation of the song is just really great. I love the organ that echoes throughout the song, and then whenever it starts off, that main guitar riff that I love so much, it's kind of an addicting guitar riff if you ask me. It creeps out of distortion, and once it comes into play, it's just really cool because it slowly comes in and becomes a big part of it, and then the chorus is just really powerful as it has a bit of a key change maybe because it just rises up really quickly. And the only thing that I can take away from this song is that at one point before the second chorus begins, Mike has a bit of a vocal peak that is just very, very bad. I mean, it's nothing out of key. It just feels like he's struggling to hit a note that his voice just doesn't seem like it can actually do that. And, I mean, he hits the note, like I said. It's just, he feels like maybe they should have rearranged it so that they were singing it in a lower pitch possibly, or just rearrange that part of the song entirely because it really did push it too much, and I feel like the song could have been perfect without that. Despite the cost of it, you'll just have to find yourself. You never really try to fix your case, just in case. Do I hear The Offspring? No? Okay. Track 6 is Lonely Girl. This is not one of them jams on the album. At the same time, it's not one of those really big ones that I can say that much about. It's not that memorable for me personally, even though it does have this guitar melody that I really do love. At the same time, it does seem to get a bit overused. The guitar solo that's used in the song is rather brief, but it's pretty darn good as well. And then it has this basic meaning that you could probably figure out just looking at the title, about a girl who's crying herself to sleep because she's lonely, and then it's meant to portray her emotions, and all in all, it's a decent song, but there's just not that much I can say about it, so sorry. Track 7 is Veins, and it's at this point where I do want to really confirm the fact that Red Sun Rising did produce quite the diverse record right here. And if anyone's going to argue that, I would have to say that is by far wrong, because we go from grunge to pop punk, and then we've got influences from the Beatles and then Tool in the next song, which I can't wait to talk about. That's my favorite song on the album. But what more could you ask for? This album is all over the place, and it's just got a lot of variety. Personally, I really love it. So you can't say that they didn't go very far in what they meant to put on this album. Instrumentally, the song has a tempo that reminds me a lot of Green Day or Rise Against, so that's kind of where the pop punk is really starting to come in. At the same time, this song reminds me of Amnesia, and that song didn't really ring a bell in the pop punk genre for me personally that much. I think it's mostly just the percussion and the kind of rhythm that it has. But the meaning to this song, I feel, is about getting in touch with oneself and feeling ready to leave rehab possibly, or just, believing that they're really close to accomplishing what they've been wanting to for a long time. So the only thing that I feel like throughout this album, and I've already said this before, but with this song in specific, is that artistically it's lacking some lyrical creativity. But I'm alright. Clarity is the 8th track on this album, and this is probably my second favorite, either that or just getting really close with Fascination, which would be my third or my second. And it's not really coming close to Stealing Life, but it's definitely my favorite jam on this album. I fucking love it. It just rocks. I mean, we've got this aggressive guitar riff, and then there's this really nice vocal attitude to it. Whenever you get to the interlude, there's kind of a bass solo with some drums that are just fantastic. And whenever you get to the ending of the song, there's this totally mosh-worthy outro, and you figure, what's the meaning to the song? What makes it such a freaking little cherry on top? It's kind of got a political meaning to it, about not putting oneself in others' shoes out of ego and privilege. So we can all relate to that. We all know what it's talking about in many situations, and this is kind of where that Tool influence comes from with that bass solo that they had in the interlude. It kind of reminds me of something that I would have heard from Tool. And whenever those drums come in the interlude, I love how it just kind of crawls in. It's just so intense. And right off the bat, this song, it really is a powerful one. And this is probably one of the best songs to hear live. Who cares?
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message system.
I seriously thought my phone butt dialed itself whenever I first heard the song. And I don't even know what that means because my phone doesn't have a butt, but whatever. Track 9 is Benny Two Dogs, and all in all, this song is a really interesting story about this humble guy that some of the members of Red Sun Rising knew. And from what I heard, he's still alive to this day, so I would love to hear some feedback from the person they wrote this song about and how he feels about it. He'd probably just listen to this and be like, yep, sums me up, love you guys. And I think there's some audio from a phone call at the beginning of the song, as well as some bells that remind me of the beginning of All Star, kind of, by Smash Mouth. And I just really love it. It has the spring vibe to it. Instrumentally, it's not the most amazing thing in the world. I think they could have focused a little bit more on making the guitar solo in there a little bit more complex rather than kind of repetitive. But still, it's very significant to the album because it's such a memorable song with its strong meaning to it. Track track 10 is Rose. This is going to have to be my least favorite song on this entire album. It's not exactly awful by any means. It just kind of comes off like one of those corny Theory of a Dead Man love songs, like Easy to Love You. And this song is better than that one by quite a freaking bit because of its lyrical passion and how much that shines in the chorus. But Easy to Love You, that song is corny, cheesy, weird, uncomfortable to listen to. I had to delete that from my phone. I remember having it for a while and I was like, I don't like this song. I hate this song. It's very uncomfortable to listen to. And so I got rid of it. But this song, no. It's just kind of the bass guitar riff that I don't like that much, I suppose. But this is one of the strongest songs lyrically. Otherwise, instrumentally, it seems to come off kind of stud-like. And not like, hey there, Delilah stud-like. I mean, just flat out not mixing together well in a cute way. It's just, I don't know, I'm not comfortable with it. We finally come down to the final song on this album, which is track 11, Evil Like You. This is another one of my big favorites on this album. I'd probably put it in 4th place, having Benny Two Dogs in 5th, and then Stealing Life at 1st, with a tie for 2nd and 3rd between Fascination and Clarity. But the reason why I love this song so much is it's got this dark, dragging hard rock feeling to it that reminds me of Evanescence a lot. It's got the piano that is creating this bitch-like attitude to it in the main guitar riff for the most part. And then at the beginning, we have some bells that are really creepy, but hey, that's kind of the emotion that this song is trying to carry. It's actually the same bells that you would have heard from Benny Two Dogs, except it's played in a different fashion. And then it's really, all in all, a sweet breakup song. It reminds me of How You Remind Me by Nickelback or Bitch Came Back by Theory of a Dead Man. I think my girlfriend Kayla was the one who actually mentioned that, the Theory of a Dead Man song. But I like this song a little bit more than both of those songs. Maybe Bitch Came Back comes rather close, but this song isn't using any profanity to get that point across, though, is it? So, all in all, if you give this song a listen, it's one of the most intriguing ones, so it's a great song to finesse the album. I really do want to thank everybody who's taken the time to watch and listen to me review the new Red Sun Rising album, Thread. Like I said, I pre-ordered this album, and I am very satisfied with this release. By no means would I consider it a sophomore slump. Overall, the musicality is a lot more creative and a lot more experimental. The lyrical creativity is not the greatest thing ever. It's kind of weak there in places, but still, my final score for this album is an 89%. So with that, I can say that it's only 5% less than Polyester Zeal, their debut album, but I like this album's motive and the passion behind it a little bit more than Polyester Zeal because of the creativity and sound and how they use a few more different instruments without, going to the freaking soundboard for artificial crap. And if you want to listen to this album yourself, there's a link down in the description below. And if you want to hear some other reviews of this, you can watch the one by Rocked, which I'll link, as well as the one by Justin French. He and I are kind of good friends in terms of what we review on here, and I like to watch a lot of his. But that's about it. See you next time. That's that, and album review over.